G'day, I'm Troy from Microsoft. I'm a learning delivery specialist, and welcome to the second inclusive classroom session that we're running together, Microsoft and the NDCOs. We hope you really enjoy it. We hope there's a lot in here to help you, not only yourself, but also maybe with some of the people that you work with and some of the people that you support. I think you're really going to enjoy today. Inclusive classroom features are very, very rich in the Microsoft space, but I think none is better than Immersive Reader. It's certainly one of our best tools, and it's certainly cool in what it can do in terms of reading support. So let's jump right in, shall we? So as I said, this is the second in our series. Please feel free to go back and look at episode 1 if you want to have a look at what we're doing in this space. We do a really good introduction there, or really good if I do say so myself, introduction into what the inclusive classroom means from a Microsoft perspective, and we talked about the difference between differentiation and personalization, and we also looked at the ease of access and how you can set your device to be much more personalized using that feature. So please go back and access that. You can get it here at my YouTube page, which is aka.ms/TroyYT. Now, the other thing that we're going to do today is we're going to do a very brief introduction to Microsoft 365, just because for a lot of people, they don't know it's there, they don't know how to access it, etc. So we'll just do some of those basics there. Then we'll jump into Immersive Reader, and then lastly, we'll sort of clean up with some next steps. So this is our mission statement again. Our mission is to empower every person and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. We certainly go deeper into the inclusive classroom features and the inclusive classroom philosophy, I should say, in our previous episodes, so please jump in. But I do want to remind you that we do take our mandate and our mission very, very seriously. And you can see there that I've underlined every person, because it's not just the mainstream, but it's also people that we might, sort of say are on the margins. The other thing that I'd like to draw your attention to is education.microsoft.com, which is the Microsoft Educator Center. On there, we have a whole heap of courses, online courses, self-directed for you to go in and explore what we've got in the accessibility space and in the inclusivity space, but there's a lot more in there as well. So you can just go in there, sign up with set yourself up with an account with just your school email address, and it'll keep a record of the things that you do as well. Okay, so jumping in to talk about Office. So when we think about Office, and Office 2021 is about to be released, and by the time you watch this, if you're watching it on a video, it may have already been released, but let's just imagine that we're still on 2019. So Office 2019 is a static version of Office, and 2021 will be the same. And what I mean by that is it doesn't mature in terms of features. So the version that you buy, the non-subscription version that you buy, you get a standalone copy, and then it doesn't mature. All right, so I just want you to keep that in mind. Now, the other thing I want to point out to you is that you have Office 365 in the cloud, which is through the browser, and that's what I'm going to take you through a little bit later and introduce you to and show you how to access that. But the cool thing for us is that Office in the cloud talks to the fully installed version of Office, right? And this is getting updated all the time with the latest, greatest features. And if you're on 2019 or 2021, this will stay static, but this is installed on your machine. But what we've got is we've got a series of apps called Microsoft 365 apps, okay, which is the subscription service. So what we do is we take the best of this and the best of this, and we combine it into one tool, Microsoft 365 apps. And what that means is, whereas 2019 or 2021 doesn't upgrade, doesn't get new features, 365 apps fully installed on your machine will. Okay, so whilst these two still talk to each other, it's actually better to be in this space here. So for most of you working in schools or universities, this is part of the subscription, which means that you've got access to this. So no need to go down to JB Hi-Fi and Kmart or wherever and be buying a version of Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Office. Instead, you can download it and you can put it directly onto your machine via your institution. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. But I do want to point out to you that there are 5 free copies available to you. So when you access Microsoft 365 apps, you get one for your work machine, one for your home machine, and then you've got another three copies for other machines, for other people in your family who live in the same house, for example. Now, we're not talking about phones and tablets. Those are free anyway, but you can connect them as well. All right. So we're talking about free copies for your PC or for your Mac. So your Windows 10 or Windows 11 machine, and also for your Apple Mac. And remembering, on your phone, on your tablet devices, those are free downloads anyway. So how do we access those? Well, I'm glad you asked. What you need to do is you need to pop over here to office.com. All right. So www.office.com. And when you come to that page, sign in using your institution email address. Okay. So sign in using your institution email address. And then what happens is you click on this little button over here, which says install Office. Okay, you'll get a drop down. Whatever machine that you are on, it will install that onto your machine, up to 5 copies. All right, so you can do it on your work machine, you can do it on your home machine, you can do it on your partner's machine, your kid's machine, whatever, until you've used up those 5 free copies. So that's hundreds of dollars worth of software available to you. Now, this is what it looks like these days. All right, so when you come into office.com, there's that install Office button. All right, and it's where you put in the Office 365 apps, of course. All right, which is what I just showed you. But over here we've got all these cloud-based apps as well, or web-based apps. All right, so these aren't installed in your machine. Instead, these are the ones that you use through the browser. And that's important, because today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Immersive Reader in Word, but I'm going to show it to you in the browser, not in the fully installed version of Word. Okay, so keep that in mind. So later on, when you want to go in and have a look and see how it works, remember you need to come to office.com first. All right, and after you're here at office.com, you're going to click on the Word icon and you jump in and have a look at it in there. All right. So when we talk about the inclusive classroom and when we think about reading support, it is all about Immersive Reader. Now, one thing I want to point out to you is personalization. Remember, we talked about this in our last session, right? That the students, or even you, can personalize your own learning or personalize your own experience on your device. So the onus is no longer on the teacher to differentiate and to create specialized resources. Instead, the teacher facilitates personalization by putting them into the Office 365 space. All right, so by putting the assessments or putting the learning engagements into the Office 365 space, and then the student gets to personalize that themselves. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into Word in the browser. Okay, so I'm going to open that up here. So here I am in a document, and you can see, if you've never been to Word in the browser before, it looks a lot like the Word that you've got installed on your machine. If you know how to use that, you will know how to use this. Okay, so again, I want to stress I am in Word in the browser. I am not in Word on the Mac. I am not in Word fully installed on the PC. I am in Word in the browser. Now, where does Immersive Reader live? Immersive Reader lives here under the View tab. All right, so if I click on the View tab, you can see Immersive Reader lives over here. But you know, there's so many tabs, and then under each of these tabs, there's so many buttons, and it's really difficult to remember where things are. So for example, if you want to use Immersive Reader, but you don't remember where it is, okay, what you can do is you can come up here to the search button and you can start to type. As I start to type Immersive Reader, and under actions here, what it does is it brings the button to me. All right, so rather than having to remember that it lives in View and lives in here, I can just type it in there and look for it. But nevertheless, it lives in the View tab, so let's turn it on. And there's Immersive Reader kicked in. Now, the first thing that we notice is Word is gone. Now, we're still in the browser, okay, so we can still see all the browser and all the browser bits and pieces, but Word is gone. All the buttons, all the colors, all the distractions, all the bells and whistles of Word is gone, or whatever app I happen to be in. Now, you see this little button over here. This is the Enter Full Screen Mode button. So I click on that, and now everything is gone. Okay, so all I have is my document. So I am reducing distractions, which is going to be important for a lot of the people that you work with. Now, please notice there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different buttons here. All right, and we're going to go through them. We're going to look at those. Obviously, this one will take us back outside of Immersive Reader into the original document. Let's go back in there as well. And this one over here, as we said, takes us into full screen mode. All right. Now, the cool thing about this is we can start to use the Immersive Reader features and functions and change what we need to in this document without going outside of the document. So again, the changes that I make are made inside the document. I don't have to go to my Mac settings or my PC settings or my browser settings or anything. It's all done Immersive Reader inside the document itself. I'll show you what I mean. So the first button I have over here is text preferences with the 2 A's. So over here in the top right. So I'm going to click here on text preferences. And the first thing that we notice is it brings up a text size slider. All right. So yes, it's going to show me my font points. It is actually on there, but I just have a slider. It's nice and intuitive, and I can increase and decrease the text size according to what I need. Now, if I was suffering from something like dyslexia, and maybe I was challenged by visual crowding, where all the words, lines and letters seem to merge together, what I can do is I can use this button here and I can increase the spacing. And so what it does is it increases the spacing between the letters, between the words, and also between the lines. And if I need to accentuate that spacing, I can do so by increasing the text size. All right. Now, you may have heard of something called the dyslexia font. The dyslexia font is a good thing, but save your coins, because what we've done is we've got 3 very simple fonts: Calibri, Sitka, and every primary teacher's favorite, Comic Sans. And they are very clear, clean, crisp fonts, very sharp. And the fact that we can increase the text size and increase the spacing means it does very much what the dyslexia font does. All right. We also have the ability to change our colors. All right. So we can go into dark mode if we want. We can go into sepia. We can go into a different color if that's going to help us with the lighting in the room, or even just making it more interesting. Okay. The other thing too is we've got the source formatting. All right. So bold, italic, underline. So you can see I've got some bold here. When I turn the source formatting off, that's exactly what it does. It turns off the bold, underline, italics, strike through, etc. It turns all those off, because sometimes that can be a distraction, but other times it's so important to the text that we want to leave it on. Now, I will point out to you that Immersive Reader in the browser strips any pictures you have as well. All right. So photos and images are no longer visible when we're in Immersive Reader. So just keep that in mind. Now, down here, we have the voice settings. All right. So we have the ability to speed up and slow down, and we also have the ability to go from female to male voices as well. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play this for you, and hopefully you're going to be able to hear this.
An academic or scholarly journal is a periodical publication in which scholarship relating to a particular academic discipline is published. Academic journals serve as permanent and transparent forums for the presentation.
Okay, so you can see what it's doing there. Hopefully you could hear it through the presentation, but what it's doing is it's actually reading in a nice, natural Aussie sounding accent. And again, that can be sped up, and it can go sort of screen reader fast, or maybe not that quite fast, but very fast. And then it can also be slowed down as well. All right. Now, the other thing too is maybe we don't want the entire document to be read. We just want the words that we struggle with, right? So we might be reading along, everything's fine. We get to a word that we struggle with, and we just want to hear that word.
Publication.
Okay, so we can choose to have that scaffolded support around individual words, or we can choose to have that support right across the entire document, right, and have it read to us. So what's happening here is it's imitating what a lot of the student support workers would do when working with a student who needs some help around the text. Now, the other thing that we've got next is the grammar options button. Okay, so when we click on that, we can see we've got a syllables button. So what it will do is an AI, okay, so we're connected to an artificial intelligence through the internet, so you must be connected to the internet for this to work, by the way, but it will syllabify. So it will take those multi-syllable words and it will break them down. Now, it won't read them to you, but visually, while you're reading along yourself, you can say discipline, published, okay, and it's going to chunk. All right, or break those words down into little pieces and make it easier for you to decode. The other thing we've got is we've got the parts of speech. So the ability to highlight, for example, our nouns. Okay, so all our nouns are now highlighted. So again, the AI is looking at those words and it's reading them in context. All right, so it's not just saying, oh, scholarship is a noun. It's saying scholarship in this context is a noun. So for example, if I was to say, let's play tag, it would show tag as a noun. But if I say I'm going to tag you, it would show tag as a verb. All right, so there we can see we're highlighting our verbs now, we're highlighting our adjectives, and we're highlighting our adverbs as well. Okay, so that's going to be support for some of your students, no doubt. Now, if a student is having trouble with color differentiation, you can change some of these colors to make it better suited to the student, all right? But if they really have trouble with color differentiation, you can show the labels instead. All right, so you can see there, I can see all my nouns, my adjectives, my verbs, etc. And again, they are done by context, they're contextualized, so the parts of speech are done according to where they sit in the sentence. All right, so that's what that looks like, and that's our grammar options there. Now, the next one we've got is what's called reading preferences. All right, now I'm just going to scroll up here. And when I turn on reading preferences, you can see here I've got line focus. And I've got 5, 3, and 1 line focus. So let's turn it on. Let's go to 5. So it's going to show me 5 lines and cover out parts of the page. All right. So I want to reduce my distractions. I may want to reduce my distractions even further or even further again. And now when I play.
Publication in which scholarship relating to a particular academic discipline is published.
You can see that it's actually following along. It's highlighting the words as we go in sync with the audio, but it's also reducing those distractions for me. Now, the other one we've got, which may be a little bit more sort of K to 12, but there's certainly opportunity to be using this above, is the picture dictionary as well. So what the picture dictionary does is when I find a word, okay, let's try and see if we can find one that's got one for me. Here we go. Research has got one. What it does is it actually highlights the word. It gives me the ability to see it and hear it, and it gives me a picture prompt as well. Now, not every word has a picture prompt, okay, but a lot of them do. Okay, so it just gives that little bit of extra support for the student. Great for EAL as well, by the way. Really, really good for English as an additional language support. Speaking of English as an additional language support, let's come down next to the translate. So I want you to imagine that we've got a student who is maybe from Korea. Okay, and that student has joined, let's hopefully post-COVID and we're all in and we're all back. But that student has come back and they actually are reading this article and they're struggling with some of the terms, okay? So what we've got is the ability to translate into multiple languages, okay? You can see these languages here. Not every language has every feature, okay? But I'm going to show you Korean as an example because that actually does have all the features built in. So when I click over to Korean, all right, and I'm now in translate, when I come to a word that I don't know and I click on it, okay, I can see it and hear it in English.
Periodical.
Or I can see it and hear it in Korean.
정기.
All right, or maybe this word academic.
Academic. 학술.
All right, so I can see it and hear it in the second language, but I may need the entire document translated as well. So I'm going to jump in there and click the entire document. Now you can see that what's happening here is I've got the entire document translated into Korean. It's even remembered to leave that source formatting on there for me as well. All right, so there we can see we've got the parts of speech. When we highlight some of these words, there will actually be a picture dictionary. I'm going to have to just clicking until I find one. There we go. So the picture dictionary is in there as well, so I can see it and hear it in English. Korean.
투명한.
See it and hear it in English.
Transparent.
And I've also got the picture prompt. And I can jump backwards and forwards between those two languages. But where it gets really impressive is when it starts to read in our second language.
학기시 또는 학술 저널은 특정 학문 분야와 관련된 장학금이 출판되는 정기 간행물입니다. 학술 저널은 연구의 프리젠테이션.
Okay, so I can be playing that in English. I can be playing that in Korean. I can be looking at individual words in English and Korean and going backwards and forwards as well. All right, so that's Immersive Reader. Now look at this. When I go back, there's the original document. Okay, so I haven't made any changes to the actual original document, and I, as a teacher, can make that document available knowing that the students will be able to personalize their experience themselves. Okay, so when I come back to Immersive Reader, they'll have a look. It remembers all my settings. Okay, it remembers everything. So we don't need to be building this out every time. In other words, it's not every time I open Immersive Reader, I have to click, text preferences and then, no, it will remember my settings, and every time I come back in, the article will be exactly as I wanted it to be. So the other thing about Immersive Reader, yes, we've looked at the translation, but it will also identify multiple languages. So it's not just going to translate from English. For example, if I cut and pasted some Korean into a document, Immersive Reader will read that Korean or the French or the Spanish or the German. Okay, and then we can translate that into English, or we can even translate the German into Japanese, for example. All right. So it's not just its ability to translate, it's also its ability to identify multiple languages as well. So we did some studies, okay, or we had some studies carried out by third-party organisations, and we found that one of the teachers in the study found that it's an empowering tool. It evens the playing field for students who are struggling readers. It allows them to feel more like independent learners, not depending on the teacher, not depending on peers, and not depending on an aide either, or some sort of support worker. It grows that independence, and it also reduces that stigma. Another study that we carried out found that nearly all of the study teachers mentioned how it enabled their readers, regardless of skill level, to access content aimed at a higher reading level. In this case, access means comprehension of content that had previously been unavailable. So in other words, it just helps. For example, if you're working with a Year 9 student, it's going to help them to access Year 12 text or even university level texts, etc. Now, the British Dyslexia Association and Noel Hill, who run a very strong dyslexia program at their school, did their own trial and found that Microsoft's OneNote or Immersive Reader inside OneNote boosted dyslexic children's learning. So a trial found 16 out of 18 children showed improved behaviour. Why? Because now they could connect with the content. And then 11 out of 16 saw their reading comprehension scores get better. Another study that was carried out showed that 10 to 12th grade students saw their reading comprehension scores improve, their writing improved, non-cognitive processes improved, and they also had equal access to materials, or at least an improvement in that. And you can download these slides. I'll share the link with you again at the end, but you can download these slides and you can actually access these studies yourself. So where do we find Immersive Reader? Well, Immersive Reader is available in Office 365, which most of your institutions will already have access to and the students will have access to, all right? So Office 365, which is what we looked at before, we went to office.com, used our school sign-in, email address and login, and then we're able to access it. But there is a free version to everybody, which is in Office Online. So remembering you're going to get a lot more over in the Office 365, the full subscription, but there is a free version to everyone as well. And then, of course, it's also built into Teams, which we'll have a little bit of a look at later on. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about, though, is I want to talk to you about Immersive Reader in Office Lens, all right, or Microsoft Lens. Now, this is available for your tablet device and also for your phone. So whether you're on an Apple device or whether you are on an Android device, that's fine. Go to your Play Store or go to your App Store and look for Microsoft Lens, all right, or Office Lens. And then when you download that onto your phone, it becomes like a PDF creator, an image creator, and it uses what's called optical character recognition. And what that means is it will actually look at the text outside of the computer, okay? So whether you're using analog text, whether you're using a handout, whether you're using a book, it will actually read that text and then it will run Immersive Reader from inside your phone or inside your tablet. So I'm going to show you a bit of a video here and we'll sort of stop and start as we go through. Okay, but you can see here I'm on my iPhone, okay, and I'm going to hover and I'm going to highlight that piece of text. All right, so I highlight it and then I click the document button, and then as I do that I click done, and then what happens is it opens up this little menu for me where I can drop that photo straight into my photo library. I can create a PDF, I can drop it into OneNote, OneDrive, Word or PowerPoint, okay, but I can also click on Immersive Reader. And while I'm here, don't forget to sign in using your normal school email address as well into the app, so it'll connect with the rest of 365. But you can see we've got the Immersive Reader button. Okay, so what happens is when I click the Immersive Reader button, it opens Immersive Reader inside my device, right? Whether that's my tablet or my phone. And so I get the full Immersive Reader experience inside the phone. I'm not having to open it in Word or anything like that, but you have a look.
Sarah Cynthia Sylvia Stout. Would not take the garbage out.
So it'll read to you, okay? You've got all the ability to change the text size, the spacing, the font, the colors, syllables, parts of speech, etc. You can see it all here. We've also got the line focus, the picture dictionary, and the ability to translate. So there it is translated into Spanish.
Jamones.
It'll read those words
Y
to
aunque
us.
su papá gritaba y gritaba, ella simplemente nos sacaba la basura.
Okay, and it'll also read the parts of speech to us, etc., all from inside the phone. Now, again, where do we find that? We find that in your App Store or your Play Store, depending on which platform you're on. Download it, sign in, get in and have a play. You can't break it. Now, the other thing I want to point out to you is that Immersive Reader is not only available in Word, it's also available in OneNote. All right. So if you're a OneNote user, click on the View tab. You'll be able to see Immersive Reader is in there as well. If you're on an iPad or a Mac, then you will find it built into OneNote for those dedicated apps. All right. So OneNote for iPad, OneNote for Mac. It's there, but it's not in Word, but you can still go through your browser just like we did a moment ago. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is Immersive Reader inside the Edge browser. Okay, so I'm going to open up here. I'm going to take you and I'm going to show you here aka.ms/getEdge. Okay, and that's going to take us to downloading the latest version of Microsoft Edge, right, which is our browser. Now, if you haven't heard, Internet Explorer is end of life. Okay, so we're not even using it at Microsoft anymore. This is our new browser. It's called Edge. And again, we go to aka.ms/getEdge, okay, which is here, aka.ms/getEdge, and make sure that you install the latest, greatest version. Now, you may say, hey, why are you telling me that? I've already got Edge. However, you need to make sure you've got the latest version installed on your machine to be able to see all the bells and whistles and buttons, etc. Okay, now once you've got that, what you can do is you can use Immersive Reader for web pages, okay? So have a look at this. Here I am on the Age website, and I've got this article. Now you can see that there's ads, there's colors, there's bells and whistles, there's a whole heap of things happening on this page, and I may want to just simplify this so that I can have a nice Immersive Reader experience. Now up here in my URL bar, which is the address, you can see I've got the little Immersive Reader button that has appeared here. So when I click on that, what happens is Immersive Reader, first of all, it strips a lot of the ads and the things to the side and the distractions. It leaves the graphics in though, which is really important because who wants a website without graphics, right? I've got read aloud, so the ability to have the document read to me.
Dominic Perrottet wins leadership ballot to become next Premier of NSW.
Okay, so that's a nice English sound, Aussie sounding English voice. I've got the ability to speed that up and slow it down like we saw before. And I've also got the ability to change my accent, right, which we didn't see in the other one before. So I could change it into an American accent, Australian accent, etc. I'm going to keep it on Natasha Online because that's a nice Aussie sounding voice. We've got the text preferences again, so I can increase and decrease the text size. I can increase and decrease the spacing. I've got my 3 favorite fonts. The other thing that we've got here, a little bit different, I can go narrow, moderate, and wide column as well. And then I've also got my themes, so I can change the color and all that kind of thing, just like we saw before. I've got grammar tools as well, so I can syllabify. I've also got my parts of speech, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. I've also got line focus. Okay, so again, 1, 3, and 5 line focus. Again, I've got my picture dictionary and the ability to translate the entire page. All right, so again, I'm going to turn that off. Here's my Immersive Reader button up here. So where did I find it? I found it here in the URL inside Microsoft Edge, and that turns on Immersive Reader. Now I want to just share a little gotcha with you. In case you come and you can't find the Immersive Reader button, I want to show you the workaround, because what happens with some of these newspaper websites and others as well, they see it as ad stripping software and it affects their business model, and fair enough. All right, so what happens now, if you can't see that little button, it hasn't appeared, what you do is you highlight the piece of text and even the graphics that you're looking at, all right, And then after you've highlighted, hover and right click, okay? That's where you get some of these drop downs. So I could just read aloud without opening Immersive Reader. I could do the translate if I wanted as well, but there's Immersive Reader. So what it's going to do now is it's only going to turn on Immersive Reader for the portion of text and graphics that I have highlighted. All right, so it's not the entire article anymore. It's just the piece that I've highlighted, which also has its usefulness, I'm sure you'll agree. All right, so that's what Immersive Reader looks like in the Edge browser. Now, the other thing that we've done is we've built it into Microsoft Forms. Now, if you don't know much about Microsoft Forms is a survey tool, but it's also an assessment tool. Okay, so you can build assessments into forms and they can be self-marking and they can also be collecting the data for you. And now when I click on the preview, okay, to show you what it looks like, when I hover over the questions, you can see that the Immersive Reader button starts to appear on those questions. So for example, here's a true or false question, right? And I for whatever reason, can't access the text. I click on Immersive Reader. And Immersive Reader will read the question and read the answer and even give me a reminder to close the browser to close Immersive Reader to access the ability to input. But have a listen.
2. Microsoft 365 apps can be installed on your laptop. 1 point. True. False. End of question. Close the reader to input your answer.
So I could listen to that as many times as I want. Then I come back to the question. I know what I'm looking for, bang, and off I go. All right. So that's what it looks like built into Microsoft Forms. So it's going to make your assessments that you build in here far more accessible. Now, the other thing that we've also done is we've built it into Outlook. Now, I'm going to show it to you in Outlook for the web, but it is also now available in the full version of Outlook for Windows 10 and Windows 11. But here I've got an email. All right, now we know a lot of lecturers will correspond with their students via email, but the problem is I'm using email and my students can't access what I'm writing to them. Well, then it's, they're locked out. So when we're in Outlook for the web, we click on the little ellipses here. We come down to show in Immersive Reader, and then the email will actually be read to me. The other thing that we've done is we've built it into PowerPoint for the web as well. So let's jump back in here. Looking at PowerPoint, so you can see here's my PowerPoint slide. I want to make some changes, etc., but I'm locked out. So instead what I do is I click on View. There's the Immersive Reader button, and it will actually read the slide to me, and you have the full Immersive Reader experience. The other thing that we've done is we've built Immersive Reader into Teams, and here I am in a Teams chat. All right, so here's a conversation that I've been having, or it's some sort of announcement perhaps. When I hover over the chat, right, or the post, I should say, I've got the ellipses. And I can translate if I wanted to, but there's Immersive Reader. So inside that chat, inside that discussion, I can be still accessing and having the full Immersive Reader experience right there inside Teams. Now, the other thing to remember, Teams is amazing because it brings a lot of our Microsoft 365 apps into Teams. So not only can we be seeing Immersive Reader on our chats and on our assignments and those kinds of things, but we can also be using it inside Word inside Teams, or inside Forms inside Teams, or inside OneNote inside Teams. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is we have this landing page here called All About Immersive Reader, and that address is down here, aka.ms/allabout-immersive-reader, aka.ms/allabout-immersive-reader. And what that does is it brings us to this landing page. You've got downloadable PDFs for Immersive Reader. There's videos about Immersive Reader. There's introductions and instructions, etc. The availability, where do you find Immersive Reader, on what platform, resources. There's a click through, videos, case studies, etc. Everything that you need to know about Immersive Reader is here. Now, I will say it's a little bit K to 12-ish, okay, but the content and the application, etc., is really there for higher ed as well. So please jump in and have a look at that. If you want to access today's slides, please go to aka.ms/NDCO, aka.ms/NDCO, and you can grab today's slides with all the links, etc. And remembering that we will be running further sessions. We've got our next session coming up in a week's time, or you can, if you're watching this on video, just go to the next video where we're going to look at writing support using the Microsoft tools as well. If you want to find the videos, today's video as well as other videos, please visit my YouTube page, aka.ms/TroyYT, aka.ms/TroyYT. If you want to connect with me, please do. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I would love you to connect with me. What I do is I find case studies, updates, latest information, and I push that out onto my page, which means it starts to appear in your feed. So I'd love you to connect with me on social media. Last thing I want to point out to you is that we have partnered with Code Red Dyslexia Network, which is an Australian national organisation, an advocacy organisation supporting dyslexia. It is, as I'm recording this, it's October, which is Dyslexia Awareness Month, and we're doing some great activities together with Code Red. So please tune in, visit codereddyslexianetwork.org.au, and you can see what's going on for this month, but we're really proud to be working with them. Okay, so on that note, we're done for the day. Please jump in, grab my slides, have a play around, visit all those websites, etc. If you need to, go back and look at our first session, which is on that my YouTube page, but also join us next week as we're going to start to talk about writing support and all the cool things you can do in that space. So I'm Troy, I'm from Microsoft Education Australia. Thank you so much for being a part of this today.